你的爱情语言是什么呢？可能有一些朋友已经做过测验，但有趣的是，爱之语并不是一个新的概念。这个是来自1992年出版的书《The 5 Love Languages》。但有趣的是啊，今年大家都在讨论这个话题，也常常被带入 small talk 当中。So let's find out how we can apply love languages at work.Hello， 欢迎来到 Executive Plus 主管与沟通力的 Podcast. I'm Sherry, an educator, certified coach, and style enthusiast. 我相信专业有效的沟通是语言跟逻辑的完美结合。
And I'm Nick, a startup consultant, corporate trainer, and late-night gaming junkie. I believe great communication requires the right mindset and solid frameworks.
我们希望带给大家职场英语的技能、跨文化沟通技巧与其他能帮助您成为出色领导者的工具。
Join us each week as we share our experience, research, and methodologies to take your communication and language skills from good to great. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Executive Plus podcast.About 30 years ago, a massively popular assessment came out that swept the US. In fact, I remember taking this assessment with my family. And that is all based on a book called The 5 Love Languages, written by a Dr. Chapman, talking about what are the ways that people like to receive love or ways that they feel loved. So back when I was a kid, my parents and I would sit down, we took the assessment, we talked about, okay, what is everyone's main love language? How does it help us understand how we show love to each other in the family?
Yeah, and I read that in New York Times, Dr. Chapman was actually a pastor, right? So he was counseling married couples for 20 years. So he basically came to this conclusion that there are 5 different types of love language that people really appreciate. And let's just kind of talk quickly about what are these 5 love languages? 因为我相信大家应该还蛮好奇的。
As we go through the love languages, one thing to keep in mind is that a baseline for all of these is that they're about random acts of love. These are not about scheduled things that you do that people feel love from. It's usually that what makes them feel affection or what makes them feel love is when this occurs randomly or it occurs more naturally. And that's sort of how they know that they're loved. So the first love language is words of affirmation. It's the feeling that when someone is praising you or they show words of pride or love and just kind of remind you verbally of how they feel, especially again in a natural state, not like, okay, I need to tell this person I love them 10 times a day. But it's just like showing when you did this for me, it really reminds me of how amazing you are. Kind of thing.
Yeah, words of affirmation 在中文的话可以翻为肯定的语言，就是你怎么样去肯定人家 giving praises or compliments. But again, like Nick said earlier, the key word is it's unexpected. 它并不是说我每一天一定要说几次啊，或者是我在固定的时间一定要说什么话。These are all unexpected. They are not something that you plan to say or you plan to receive these words of affirmation.
So maybe you tell your kids you love them every night before they go to bed. This is wonderful, but that's also somewhat of a habit, a system thing. But for here, it's just like, oh, maybe they do something that makes you really proud, and then you just tell them on the spot. Someone whose love language of words of affirmation that will make a huge difference to them.
Or maybe they did something wrong and they're really afraid that the mom may yell at them, but instead mom says, I really love you. And that is really unexpected. So the second one is act of service. 那我觉得 act of service 呢也是蛮有趣的一点，就是类似像比如说我今天生病了，我可能就是非常的不舒服 and someone got me a cup of noodle soup. That's like the thing to do in America, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, chicken noodle soup, it's always like very soothing. And they just show up unexpectedly at your door and give you the soup. That's a really nice act of service.
Or if you know that maybe around the house, something your spouse or your parents have been complaining about and like, oh, someone needs to fix this. Like just randomly handling it one day, getting it done usually will make them feel like, oh, they were listening to me.
And the third one is gifts. And I mean, I think everyone kind of appreciate gifts.
Well, back to this idea of unexpected or random. For this, it's not like, okay, birthday, Christmas. We usually expect gifts. But just maybe if you saw something that person had mentioned before or something that you really feel they would appreciate and you just buy it for no reason. Someone whose love language is gifts will additional appreciation from this.
Again, it's like unexpected or maybe like a surprise where they just, 他可能在逛街的时候就看到一样东西，然后想到你，然后买这个东西给你。So these are the gifts. And the next one is quality time, 也就是有品质的时间。
People whose love language is quality time care a lot about how you spend time together, not what you're doing. So probably all know someone in our life who's just like, yeah, I really don't care where we go for dinner, just as long as we get to go together. Conversation, the laughter, the enjoyment just comes from spending time with the person. You'll also notice that kind of person gets particularly upset if everyone's at dinner and then everyone's on their phone. Like that's not considered quality time to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last one is physical touch. So I would say physical touch would be hugs, holding hands, 那这些, or I would say pat on the back, or these are all considered as physical touch.
Anytime that someone gets a lot of comfort from physical touch, it doesn't have to be romantic in nature. It just has to be, as you said, an arm around or a hug. You probably have that friend who just hugs everyone, or there's a family member, it doesn't matter who you are or where you come from, they'll probably just hug you. That's a person whose love language is usually physical touch.
Yeah. We actually have all the links to all these different tests. 我也找到了一个中文的一个测验，所以如果大家想听完我们的 episode 的时候想做个小小测验的话, you guys can go ahead and do that. But today's episode, though, because we talk about communication, we wanted to focus on one particular love language. That is words of affirmation.
So you might be wondering, why are we talking about love language on a professional, career, or business-oriented podcast? But what makes words of affirmation so powerful and what we can learn from it is something that works very well in the office setting. A lot of times people just assume, oh, people will know I think they do a good job if their assessment or they're not getting yelled at, or I tell them they do a good job in their presentation. But for people in general, but especially people whose love language is words of affirmation, having good impromptu ways to praise them can really make a difference in their day and can really make a difference in their work ethic as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think words of affirmation, 我觉得对很多人都非常的重要。那当然，如果这个人他特别的需要 words of affirmation, 他特别会因为你的 compliments, 他会得到很多能量的话，那我觉得这个对他来讲 it's more important than money. So we just want to give you guys some examples of what the words of affirmation can be and some prompt as well.
And the most basic way to show words of affirmation in the workplace is just tell someone you're proud of them.
Yeah.
If you're a manager and you walk up to an employee, you may just say, I just want to let you know how proud of you I am.
I think everyone would love to hear that. And we don't say that enough, right? I think it's something that we expect coming from our parents. But I think as Asian, we don't really say that in a family.
What makes this really powerful is that when it's unexpected, or when it comes from someone that you may just think, am I making this person happy? I'm pleasing them, or I don't know much about them. It just shows that you recognize their growth. Being proud is usually less related to a specific task. I am so proud that you finished this report. Be like, no, I have to write reports.
Yeah.
But proud can be a great way to show someone that you see their growth in their career. So an example of that might just be, I'm proud of you for really stepping up as a leader and pushing your team forward. In that case, this pride comes from something that took time, something that took effort to accomplish, not just like a one-off thing.
那我觉得这边很重要的一个重点就是啊，当你在 compliment 人家或者提供这种 word of affirmation 的时候，具体的说出这个人他做了什么事情，我觉得这个真的非常的重要。因为我们回到了一个 maybe saying thank you， 这其实我们可能常常说 or maybe in a meeting 我们都会讲说Oh, thank you so much everyone for coming， 好像这个就是一种，这已经不是那种很 heartfelt 的一个感觉It's just kind of words that come out of people's mouth these days,
like,
right?
I know you are required to be here, but I thank you for bringing
Exactly.
time. Even if you are appreciative, it still helps to show people, in the case of going above and beyond or a case of long-term change, then showing appreciation.
Yeah. 所以如果你真的能够很具体的说，谢谢谁做了什么什么什么事情 I appreciate when you did this or I'm proud of you when you did that. You're actually being very specific. You're singling everyone out when you give these word of affirmation. That becomes incredibly powerful. It's just very different from thank you guys for being here.
Another key concept to keep in mind when it comes to words of affirmation is we often think of words of affirmation during a positive time. Good job, you guys completed all the tasks. This was really critical to our business. But oftentimes, one of the most critical moments where you can give words of affirmation are when things are down.
Yeah.
When people are feeling stressed out, when things are not going perfectly, but showing that you really appreciate their time. So saying something like, I feel so lucky to have you here. While we're pushing through this dark time or we're pushing through this difficult moment, everyone has been here to build up the company.
Or, when someone's having a hard time, just simply say, I'm here if you need me. I'm here to support you in any way I can. 我觉得这样子也算是一个 word of affirmation, just to tell them that you're here and you can be there for them.
Support can definitely be a different type of affirmation where it's not just about praising them for what they have done, but showing them that they can reach out and get support whenever they need. Sometimes they don't even actually need the support. They just need to know support is available.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times, 就算在平常的生活当中，很多人碰到状况，他并不是马上会寻求人家的一个帮助，他希望自己能够先解决，但是他希望别人能够 to just be there to support, right? Just to be there, support, and when I really need you, I'll come and find you, but I just want to know that you're there. 那我觉得这样子也算是一个 word of affirmation.
So one last type of affirmation that you can use is actually to describe the task. So before we just said proud is usually about a long-term change or adjustment, but maybe someone just did a really good job. You can use words of affirmation to say something like, wow, the last report you wrote just was so detailed and structured so well. You really did a great job on that.
Yeah. 所以希望在今天这个 episode 当中呢，不止你了解到其实有爱情的语言 The 5 love languages 你可能在很多谈话当中啊，社交英语当中你都可以带进去，而且你还可以更了解要怎么样来运用这种 word of affirmation， 不管是在 good times or bad times, showing support, showing how much you're so proud of them and appreciate them in any way possible。 我很希望大家能够从今天的单元得到这些提醒吧，因为我觉得其实大家都知道说这一些肯定的语言是会让人家感到很温馨的，但有的时候我们会不太记得说这一些是我们平常就应该要做的事情。那当然在我们的下一个单元呢，也会特别在这个 how to compliment people 这个部分呢，我们会做一些特别的分享。
We hope you enjoyed our overview of the 5 love languages, specifically looking at words of affirmation in the workplace. As Sherry said before, if you're interested in discovering your own love languages or understanding all of them, we'll have links for both the English and the Mandarin assessment in the show notes. As always, if you have any feedback or comments on what we're doing, be sure to leave us a review and a rating in your favorite podcast player. We'll talk to you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.
The Executive Plus podcast is a Presentality Group production, produced and hosted by Sherry Fang and Nick Howard. You can search us on Facebook, 主管英文 Executive Plus. You can also find us on Instagram, Communication R&D, and email us at sherry@epstyleplus.com.